When we're stressed, that increases our body's cortisol. And cortisol is our body's natural steroid. And steroids, as many of you know, increases blood sugar. And so that increase in cortisol increases blood sugar. And then that increase in blood sugar then impacts your other hormones. So when you are stressed, then you get more of these blood sugar spikes and crashes and hormonal imbalances.
Welcome to the PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Hey, and welcome to another episode of The PA is In. Today, we're talking about insulin resistance, fertility, infertility, stress, burnout, and how those things are all intertwined. My guest today is Chelsea Hayman. Chelsea is an endocrinology PA and a certified diabetes educator who is super passionate about helping other women understand their own fertility, their own metabolic profile, and how things are happening in their bloodstream in terms of metabolism, insulin resistance. If those aren't you, she's also going to give us some tips on how we can better plan our plate and really make sure that we're eating in a way that's going to make our blood sugar as stable as possible and make us feel our best. Without further ado, here she is, Chelsea Hayman. Chelsea, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So tell us a little bit about you, your clinical background, and this passion of yours.
Yeah, so I have been a PA for about 10 years now. And the last 8 years of my career, I have been within the endocrinology space. And I have just developed a passion for patients with insulin resistance and PCOS and just managing their fertility and their pregnancies and postpartum period. And so with that, I have kind of started my own little side business and have started coaching women with fertility issues who also have insulin resistance and trying to help stabilize blood sugars, optimize their fertility so that they can hopefully have a healthy pregnancy.
So this is something I remember pretty clearly from PA school, that sort of these lectures on if someone is significantly underweight, right? If they're undernourished, if some of these things are happening, unlikely that that person is getting regular periods just because bodies are thinking, hey, this might not be a healthy person. This might not be someone who would do well with pregnancy. Is the same true with insulin resistance and some of those different hormone changes?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It really affects your hormones altogether. So, when you are experiencing insulin resistance, that elevates testosterone levels and the abnormal testosterone levels. If it increases, then that affects the quality of your eggs and your ability to conceive. And also, being insulin resistant increases cortisol levels, and that stress on your body can also impact your ability to conceive.
So it sounds like you have both a clinical background where you're seeing some of these patients in endocrinology day in and day out, but also it sounds like you might have had some personal experience with this as a part of your sort of health journey and life. Are you willing to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we were trying to conceive my first son, we struggled a lot, and it took us about a year and a half to conceive our son. And part of it was the meal component, but then part of it was, I believe, was insulin resistance myself. And why I feel that it was insulin resistance myself is that I have a strong family history of type 2 diabetes. I had gestational diabetes with both my pregnancies. And postpartum, I have experienced issues with insulin resistance confirmed by wearing a continuous glucose monitor. So I know that insulin resistance played a part in our difficulty to conceive. And I this with my second child, it still took about a year and a half, but I really tried to hone in on my health as well, and really tried to improve my diet. I took some supplements like myo-inositol to help with the insulin resistance component, and I do feel like that helped because when I was consistent with that stuff, I felt like in a few months after starting that is when we ended up conceiving my second. So I do feel like insulin resistance, even though I haven't personally been diagnosed, just with my professional experience and my personal experience, I do feel like that has been a huge part in my health journey. And so I know how it feels to go through this fertility journey, and it is very, very hard emotionally, physically. We did 3 IUIs with our first when trying to conceive our first. All 3 failed. And then we ended up getting pregnant on our own. Thankfully, the cycle after our last failed IUI. And before we were taking a break uh, to start IVF, and then we ended up getting pregnant naturally, and that which was awesome. And so the second time around, we really didn't want to kind of jump into the IUI, IVF. We just kind of had the attitude that if it happens, it happens. And yeah, I decided to just focus on my health, and I do feel like that helped.
Are you feeling stuck, burned out, or craving a little more flexibility and financial freedom? You're not alone. So many clinicians feel trapped in the grind, overworked, underpaid, and unsure how to pivot. But here's the truth: your skills are valuable beyond the clinic. That's why I created the 48 Side Gig Ideas for Healthcare Providers Guide, a free PDF packed with practical, creative, and immediately cash generating ideas that you can start right now. From telehealth to medical writing and patient advocacy to app development, and even a little note on podcasting, these things aren't fluff. These are real, proven opportunities that other providers are already doing. You don't have to figure it out alone. This guide will help you explore new passions, learn how to make extra money, and make the first step towards multiple income streams and building the life and career you actually want. Download your free copy today at tracybingaman.com/gig or click the link in the show notes and start creating financial freedom and cash flow flexibility on your own terms. Because you, my friend, are more than just your clinical job, and taking the first step to generating alternative revenue streams is waiting for you inside the Side Gig Guide. Find it now in the show notes. Insulin resistance is one of these gray areas that I find as clinicians, we like to have specific boundaries, right? My patient is diabetic or not, they're pre-diabetic or they're not. Can you talk to me about the difference between insulin resistance, diabetes, and pre-diabetic? Is insulin resistance something I can tell on someone's hemoglobin A1C? How do I know that one of my patients is insulin resistant?
Yeah, that is a great question because insulin resistance is not necessarily black and white. You can have a normal A1C and still have insulin resistance. And what I tell patients is if they are experiencing some of these symptoms, such as crashes after eating and just generalized fatigue, especially in relation to what you're eating. If you have a higher carb meal and you're just feeling blah afterwards, that kind of 2 p.m. Like fatigue that you feel after lunch is a lot and due to insulin resistance. And so there's not a whole lot of lab values that we can check for insulin resistance. We can check your insulin level, we can check your A1C. You may have prediabetes or diabetes, but you can have a completely normal A1C and normal insulin levels and still be a bit insulin resistant. One other lab value that I recommend getting checked is testosterone levels, because if they are high normal or high, then that indicates that you likely have PCOS, which is a form of insulin resistance.
And then the other question, and then we'll sort of get out of this like deeply clinical discussion that we're having. But I earlier you mentioned if we're insulin resistant, we're gonna have this increase in testosterone and we're gonna have a decrease in the quality of our eggs. Is that something that's reversible if you change your diet and you no longer are insulin resistant? Can that egg quality improve over time?
Yeah, it absolutely can. So, when you are improving your blood sugars by adjusting the way that you are eating, not saying that you have to eliminate carbs or anything like that, but by pairing your carbs with protein and fiber, eating the protein and fiber before the carbs helps stabilize that blood sugar. It helps prevent those really high peaks and then those drops afterwards. That stabilization of blood sugar can improve the testosterone levels. It can lower those testosterone levels, and then in turn affects your other hormones, your estrogen and everything. And then that then helps with the egg quality and improves your ability to conceive.
So, talk to me about this order of operations of consumption, right? I'm thinking of like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, like we're doing like parentheses and then whatever those other things stand for. Is that something everyone should be doing? Or that's just like, just if we're insulin resistant, just if we're pre diabetic and we're concerned about those glucose spikes? Or is that just a good policy across the board for everyone to be doing protein fiber first?
It's a good policy for everybody to do. Even if you don't have insulin resistance, it's pretty common for our blood sugars to fluctuate a bit. And if you're, especially if you're having like a carb heavy meal, then I would highly recommend, eating that protein and fiber beforehand, because it does stabilize your blood sugar and it prevents you from developing insulin resistance in the future.
As someone who went through not specifically fertility, but just a really, really stressful time. When I was super burned out, I felt like all of my body systems were off. I was super hyperthyroid. I had some pneumonia, just a whole lot of things that were going on simultaneously. And I'm curious to hear your experience on how stress and sort of the physiologic outcomes of stress, not just I am stressed, it's not just a feeling, it is something that happens to our physiology. How can that have an effect on our blood sugar and our hormones?
Yeah, stress plays a huge part in our ability to regulate our hormones. So, when we're stressed, that increases our body's cortisol. And cortisol is our body's natural steroid. And steroids, as many of you know, increases blood sugar. And so, that increase in cortisol increases blood sugar, and then that increase in blood sugar then impacts your other hormones. So when you are stressed, then you get more of these blood sugar spikes and crashes and hormonal imbalances.
Now, do you find from a behavioral standpoint that this is hard to correct because it's cyclical, because we're eating carbs and crashing and craving carbs and eating carbs and crashing and craving? Like, how do we get out of that cycle? Like, what can we do about that? If you're listening to this and you're thinking, those are my symptoms, right? I do feel like a little crash. I do feel some of that fatigue. I do feel that crash in the afternoon. what can that person do to just make small tweaks to what they're eating and when to help so that they don't get those crashes?
First of all, I feel like accountability is huge when dealing with mental health and stress and the way you're eating. I feel like having someone in your corner, whether that be a family member or a counselor or a coach or your clinician, I feel like accountability is huge when dealing with this cyclical battle, and it's really, really hard to get out of that cycle. And I have personally struggled with this as well. And I still get into those ruts too. And it's really hard. And yeah, so accountability is huge. And then just also doing small things. You don't have to completely change your whole lifestyle because that's not sustainable right off the bat. You don't want to cut things cold turkey. You don't want to, jump into this extreme exercise routine. You want to do small things that are sustainable for you and your lifestyle. So I recommend, starting small and trying to pair your carbs with protein and fiber, and then working on eating the fiber and protein before the carbs. And then once you get one habit down, then I'd recommend doing another habit, like going on a 5 or 10 minute walk, or increasing your activity after you eat. If you don't have time to walk, just going around tidying up your house, or doing the dishes, or get up and move and not just kind of plop on the couch, which I am also guilty of doing. But after eating, just, get moving, doing something to get your body moving instead of just being sedentary afterwards. And that movement after eating can help stabilize blood sugars as well. So, yeah, just little impacts, little changes that you can add to your routine can certainly help you get out of that cycle.
And talk to me about continuous glucose monitors. What are your thoughts on patients sort of doing that on their own? Most of our listeners are clinicians, so I think they have a little bit of a leg up in terms of understanding what that data would mean and interpreting those results from a continuous glucose monitor. Is there one that you recommend? Is there like only do it under the advisement of your clinician, or this is something to sort of go online, find one, and try it out?
That's a great question. My personal and professional opinion is that I feel like everyone would benefit from continuous glucose monitors. And I mean, you don't have to wear it all the time if you just have like insulin resistance, or you don't have diabetes or things like that. But I do recommend putting one on and seeing what your body is doing and how it's responding to your different foods and activity. And it is really eye opening. With my personal experience of gestational diabetes, insulin resistance, I have worn a continuous glucose monitor periodically. I just kind of throw one on every once in a while to see what's going on. Soon after I had my second child, I ate a pretty carb heavy meal. We had pizza at my parents'. It was deep dish pizza, and I just felt awful. Like I felt like my blood sugar was high, and it caused like heart palpitations, nausea, just really fatigued and just feeling blah. And so when I went home, I still had some extra supplies from when I had gestational diabetes, and I tested my blood sugar. This was 2 hours after, and my blood sugar was in the 200s. And I was like, whoa, like my A1C, like not too long ago was normal. It was at like 4.9, which is good. And yet my blood sugar was still spiking in the 200s. And so I decided at that point to put on a continuous glucose monitor because I also had extra CGMs on hand. So I put one on, and it was just eye opening what my body was doing with certain foods, and how, pairing different foods with the carbs can help, as well as activity. So I highly encourage CGM wearing. And as far as the type of CGM or the brand, I really don't have necessarily a preference. It's really just like patient preference. Now, Libre, the Freestyle Libre, and Dexcom are generally just approved for diabetes, gestational diabetes. So a lot of patients wouldn't get approved unless they had those issues or those diagnoses. Um, so there are now a couple over-the-counter CGMs. There's the Stello through Dexcom, and then there is Lingo, which is through Freestyle. I have not personally tried Lingo, but I have used Stello and I really like it. And one benefit of the Stello is that um, if other clinicians know about Dexcom Clarity, which is the software where you can upload patient data, you can upload Stello to that Clarity app as well, so you can see your patient's data. I don't believe that you can see the data for Lingo, at least not right now. But so I love the Stello for just like over the counter, like just patients having insulin resistance or hypoglycemia issues.
Are you confident you know where your next dollar should go? 403B, 457, HSA, or Roth? There are so many options. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming. A lot of providers aren't sure if their investment mix is optimized, if they're contributing enough to their investment accounts, or if they're paying too much in taxes. Meet Caleb Pepperday, a fee-only financial planner and founder of Advanced Practice Planning, LLC. Caleb helps PAs create a clear plan of action that allows them to fast-track their path to work optional living, all while keeping more of what they earn today. Caleb's process identifies the strategies that make the most sense for each PA situation and provides step-by-step guidance to put them into action. For our listeners, Caleb is offering a free one-on-one consultation where he will provide feedback on the steps you've taken in your own financial situation and if you're on track to achieve your goals. Caleb will also help you to determine if your situation warrants needing to work with a financial planner or if you're on track doing it by yourself. Head to advancedpracticeplanning.com/FI to grab your free consultation time slot. These consultations are capped each week to keep turnaround fast. That's advancedpracticeplanning.com/FI.
Advanced Practice Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor in Montana and Pennsylvania. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Advanced Practice Planning, LLC and its representatives are properly registered or exempt from registration. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized advice or a guarantee that you will achieve a desired result. All topics discussed in this podcast are the opinion of the podcast host and not of Advanced Practice Planning, LLC, or its advisors.
Can you give us a objective criteria for what qualifies as a carb heavy meal? I think when I think that, I think like this huge thing of pasta, like just eating bread, like just like I feel like I just have a general idea of what a carb heavy meal is, but is there a way to sort of look at your plate and calculate if it's carb heavy? Like, do we need to weigh things and, know how many grams of carbs versus how many grams of protein or fat or whatever? Or is this more of like a general feeling about what we're eating?
Yeah, so I love the plate method. So having like a quarter of your plate carbs and then half of your plate protein and fiber, and then a quarter of the plate like or quarter of the plate protein, quarter of the plate carbs, and then half of the plate like a uh, fiber, like vegetable or thing like that.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful reminder because I do, as a mom of young kids, carbs feel easier. They feel easier to prepare. They're handy and they're shelf stable often. And so sometimes that's what we end up with. I think that's a good reminder.
Yeah, and you can still have like the spaghetti and the pastas, the breads, and all of that, but I just recommend decreasing the portions of like the pasta and then increasing the portion of the protein and veggie, or like pair it with like a side salad, or I like pairing my like we have spaghetti a lot because my boys like spaghetti, so we're gonna have spaghetti. So I usually pair it with like broccoli and then maybe a side salad or something like that. So I'll do like a small portion of the spaghetti and then have like meatballs and broccoli to help kind of round it out.
Yeah, I find so a lot of the clients that I work with are women. A lot of the listeners to our show are women because so many of the practicing PAs fall into that female identifying category. Women tend to be at the bottom of the to-do list. We have prioritized our kids' health and wellness, our, the relationships in our lives, maybe our partner, making sure that their needs are met, making sure work is done. And it can feel like we are at the very bottom of the list, honestly, even if we make the list at all. What is something that you have to say to that person who's feeling like, yeah, my health has never really been top priority because I've spent my career pouring out into my patients and my life pouring out into those around me?
Yeah, that is a good point, and I struggle with this as well. Just being the bottom of the list, I have two boys. I'm a mom. I work full time and then have my side business. So, like, we're busy, especially as working moms. We're just busy, and it is really hard to put ourselves first when we're taking care of all of these things. But I really encourage women to do your best to do something to put yourself first. So whether that be waking up a little bit early to have just some me time, or have a little just me time at the end of the day after bedtime routine, or something to kind of get out of that take care of everybody mindset. I also feel like kind of circling back, accountability is huge. I personally recently invested in a health coach myself because I felt like I just needed that accountability to put myself first. And by putting myself first, it gives me more energy to be a better mom and to be a better wife, be a better clinician. So by setting some time aside for you time, it really improves your ability to take care of other people too.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's such an important reminder. And when I have those thoughts or feelings that creep in, that mom guilt, and thinking like, "Oh, I'm recording a podcast right now, but I could be like doing a puzzle with my kids," right? I try to remind myself that I am modeling for them someone who is passionate about something and cares deeply about the work that I'm doing. And if I'm going to go on a trip to spend time with my friends or do something that I enjoy, that I want my kids to grow up, even if they're parents, even if they're professionals, right? To have things that they care deeply about and to remember that they're people too. I think we forget that parents are people. We forget that providers are people, in those roles. And it's important to remind ourselves like we're more than the job that we do, we're more than the roles that we exist in this world to serve. And that's just an important reminder that I too need to give myself pretty regularly as we're sort of navigating, priorities and health and all of those things. So if someone is listening and thinking, either this would be really great for my patients, or hey, this would be really great for me. I want to know kind of how my blood sugar is. I want to learn how to engage and connect with you. Can you tell us more about Empowered Glucose and where people can go to learn all about that?
Yeah. So I have a website, empowerglucose.com. So you can find me there. I also have Instagram, I have Facebook, and then also LinkedIn, all Empowered Glucose tags. So you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. I feel like this was such a good mix of clinical, where we just got down to the nitty gritty and sort of talked about like, what does this mean and how do we help, our patients and ourselves? And then also a reminder that our health matters. And if we are empty and depleted and we don't feel well, it's really hard to take good care of the people around us in our lives. My favorite episodes are the ones where we get the opportunity to talk about physiology and how bodies work and remember some of those things we learned way back in PA school and take them and apply them to our everyday lives to make ourselves healthier so that we can be well and we can take care of the people that we love the most. I hope that you are taking time this week to take care of yourself. Make sure that you are subscribed to the show so you don't miss an episode. If this was a good one, send it to a friend, send it to a fellow clinician, send it to a patient or family member of yours who might need to learn some of these things. And as always, if you can leave a review on whatever platform you tune into, those are super helpful for other listeners finding the show. That's all for today. This PA is out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.